Hey, welcome to the 8th in our Invest Atlanta Live series for startups and scale-ups. These sessions aim to provide timely, relevant information and inspiration to the community during the challenges of the COVID-19 pandemic. I'm Michelle Olympiadis, an Invest Atlanta board member and champion of economic development in the city as the chairwoman of the Invest Atlanta Committee by that name. Invest Atlanta is Atlanta's economic development agency and invests in people, communities, and companies here. The economic development team supports company attraction, retention, and expansion, as well as technology and startup companies in the city. Today, we held our board meeting and approved a number of important initiatives for the city, including the launch of the new Women's Entrepreneurship Initiative 2020 cohort of 15 fantastic female early stage founders. We also approved the Create ATL Fund designed to support gig workers in the creative industries with funding during these challenging times. We are always looking for ways to support Atlanta's business community, especially right now. During the COVID-19 pandemic, we are focused on bringing resources and support to the community of innovators and entrepreneurs in our community. To that end, we have partnered with the startup ecosystem to bring you this info session. Thank you to our many sponsors who support this effort with ideas, connections, and helping spread the word, including the Technology Association of Georgia, the Metro Atlanta Chamber, the Advanced Technology Development Center, the Atlanta Tech Village, Venture Atlanta, and many more. Now let's get started with Mark Wilson of Chime Solutions on the topic of refocusing and scaling a company during the COVID-19. Aaron Hurst of Endeavor Atlanta will moderate the session. Endeavor Atlanta is a global organization that selects and supports the region's fastest growing entrepreneurs to think bigger, scale up, and multiply. Thank you for joining us live, and now over to Mark and Aaron.
Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you, Michelle. Hi, everyone. This is Aaron Hurst, the Managing Director of Endeavor Atlanta. I'm excited to be here today, and believe we have Mark joining as well, too.
Yeah, I'm here.
Hey, Mark.
Hey, Aaron. How are you?
Doing well. Good to see you.
Yes, sir. Likewise.
Well, first, Mark, you have an amazing story. I'd love it if you could take a few minutes to introduce yourself, introduce your company, Chime Solutions, and maybe tell folks a little bit more about your background.
Sure. Excited to have this chat with you today, Aaron. Chime Solutions really has its roots and its basis in the first company that I had the privilege and honor to start and work with a lot of great people in the BPO outsourcing space. So I started the first company, Ryla Teleservices, back in 2001. And that was after working for Dun & Bradstreet for a number of years, doing the work that I now do as an entrepreneur. We were fortunate that D&B made a decision to outsource work, and I got a chance to be one of the companies, started a company actually to compete and be one of their partners, and that worked out. Started out in my basement and kind of grew that company pretty rapidly over 10 years, and ultimately sold it. And now, a couple of years after that, put the team back together, have our whole leadership team back together to now, and working on replicating the success that we had there and trying to do some other things more intently around social impact while doing the work that we do.
That's fantastic. And Mark, you're always super modest with how you describe your success, both at Ryla and now at Chime. So one question I always love to ask founders is it nature or nurture? Or do you think you always wanted to start a business and had that entrepreneurial spirit within you, or was it the opportunity that you saw coming out of D&B to start Ryla, or is it kind of a mix of two?
Yeah, I definitely think it's a combination of the two. I didn't grow up necessarily with a burning desire to be an entrepreneur. Actually, pretty modest upbringing, and didn't really, in a small community, for the community that I lived in, primarily African Americans, didn't have unfortunately, the number of examples as entrepreneurs that would have inspired me to necessarily do that. And so I traditionally just needed to go away to college for the purpose of getting an education and then getting a job. That was kind of what it was. But along the way, I was afforded an opportunity while working at D&B to manage one of our locations in Greensboro, North Carolina. And that was inspirational to me. I got a chance to try some things that I really enjoyed that had an impact on the people that worked there, I believe. And so I just thought if I ever had a chance to do this as an entrepreneur, that I would take full advantage of it. And fate had it that the opportunity came along shortly thereafter. And so I just went for it.
That's great. That's great. And so Ryla, your first company, you grew to hundreds of millions in revenue and thousands of employees, but you also led it through the last financial crisis that we had in 2008. So maybe talk a little bit more about that. What were some of the things that you had to endure and some of the things you learned that, have been instructive for you and your team at Chime today?
Yeah, it's eerily familiar to me and a lot of the folks that are on my team that, we find ourselves in a crisis busier than we've ever been before. And literally that is the case for us now. I think a lot of it has to do with the nature of the business that we're in, where there's a need for, our services amongst, the corporate community. And so, but I also believe positioning the company to be prepared for, rapid scale and rapid growth, and to, be a partner that corporate clients would feel comfortable, putting trust in and giving the work to. The combination of both those things, I think, are very important. And so, we've just tried to build our business on a solid foundation. So to, take advantage of the opportunities that crisis brings like this, we've been prepared for. And I think that's been a big part of our success.
Yeah. What do you think has been different about this crisis? Obviously, there's the physical distancing part of it that's very different than 2008. But anything else that you'd call out that's been different?
Yeah, well, seeing in the 2008 downturn, there wasn't a complete shutdown of things, and so literally the world kind of stopped, for a while as far as business is concerned. So that is completely different, and so it was really kind of business as usual for us. While things were bad all around us, in terms of the day-to-day for our business, it wasn't that much different. We had more interest in all, but we were all working from within the brick and mortar inside our call centers. In this instance, that wasn't possible. So we had to do something very different and completely dynamic. So we were able, in 3 locations that we have, Dallas, Charlotte, and here in Atlanta, we had to pivot in little less than a week, or right at a week, to get most of those people set up to work from home so that we could have continuity for our clients. And so that was very different. And right now we have 90% of our staff deployed at home. A big deal for us, because most of the folks that work for us have never had the opportunity to enjoy the privilege of, working out of their home. And so that's a pride point for us. We've been very excited about the fact that we were able to pull that off.
Yeah, just to kind of dive into that a little bit deeper. So the pandemic hits the United States.
Yeah.
I think every business leader is trying to process what's going to happen, and all of a sudden, the lockdowns start coming across the country, and including in Georgia. And you operate in 3 different states with over 2,000 employees that, by the nature of your work, you have to physically be there due to the sensitivity of the data that you handle with your clients, and the nature of how you work with your teams. So I'd love to hear, kind of Mark and his team in the war room as you're sorting through this. Like, how did you go from, 2,000 employees in 3 cities serving Fortune 1000 customers, to we're 90% remote within a week? I mean, that's incredible. I'd love to just dive in and kind of tell us how you all did that.
Yeah, it was definitely a war room scenario. We were all sitting around and really trying to do that as the information was coming out of early stages of distancing, and trying to navigate that within an office situation was something we were dealing with. But the real key to this is that there was a little foresight that I had, thinking that we could be in this situation as the conversation started to come about, shutting things down and all. So, just really put the challenge to my leader in IT, Luis Camacho, to look into this and see what it is that we would be able to do technically to get people home. And what came out of that was a solution, so we had to invest in some hardware to get, set up. And that was a big part of the week that it took us to do that. And then we just have solid leadership. I mean, our project management office with Natalie Erskine, who leads that practice force internally, was able to set up, a process for us to start to deploy folks at home in all 3 sites. And, and our leadership team having to execute on that plan. It was a definite team effort, and, required, up to and including, we had to get some PCs over to Charlotte. So we loaded up a U-Haul and sent one of our folks to, one of the IT folks drove the PCs, because obviously there's security and there's things we had to deploy hardware from internal. So we drove the PCs over to Charlotte and did all what we needed to do. It was definite team effort. That's
incredible. And I mean, just highlights the importance of having a super strong team that knows how to communicate with each other and has a high level of trust in a situation like this, right? That's correct.
That's correct. It is definitely the benchmark for any success we've had at Ryla here. And there was another company that we talk about in the middle of these 2 companies that the leadership team has been together on, but definitely chemistry there. And then we've done some good things here lately by adding some, new blood into our ecosystem to help us to kind of think currently. I mean, I want to, my daughter works in the company, and, and her thought process for how, this generation of folks think is helpful to us as a leadership team, trying to make sure that we're relevant and current about the things that we're thinking about and doing. And so it's a good mixture of old and new that we have on our team that's making things work.
That's awesome. So as the title of this webinar suggests, the importance of refocusing and really finding opportunities within the midst of crisis. I'd love to hear about the aspects of Chime Solutions that, this crisis has forced you to refocus on, more or most over the last few weeks.
Well, it's been, you hate to kind of talk about things in such a, positive light, given the fact that there's so many people suffering through this. I mean, there's, 30-some million people without a job now. That's, that's incredible. And, something that we should all be sensitive to. But, outside of that, there's always a silver lining. And I think for us, we've just tried to identify that. And for me as the leader, I think it's, a lot of the time that I spend doing CEO things, flying around and this meeting and that committee, whatever, take away from the real intense focus on your business, day to day. And so the benefit for me has been, we now have twice a day meetings with the leadership team that I lead. So I'm actually getting to interface and talk to my team for 2 solid hours every day. And it doesn't feel strained and doesn't feel rushed, and it feels really natural. And we're getting to collaborate and talk about all aspects of our business right now. Different than I can recall, where we've had that kind of concentrated time with each other. And so that we've been able to, kind of turn over every stone in the business and, put process to things that we needed to improve on. And it's definitely been beneficial to our business.
Yeah. What are some of the opportunities that this crisis has revealed to you and your team?
Well, I think you don't understand the importance of, the day-to-day contact of people until you don't have it. You don't get to experience it on a day-to-day basis. And so I think it's really driving an appreciation for that. But to the other side of that, the use of technology, like even this medium that we're on here today, has given us some insight as to how we can operate more efficiently now, and actually cheap, more inexpensive, so we don't have to have as much travel. That it's revealed that to us, and so I would think those two things are the things that I think are have been the most revealing to us as a leadership team and me as a leader.
Yeah, and I'd love you to share. I know you've been looking at, you may have already implemented, now that you have been able to move your team remotely and they're still operating at a high level, how that's changed how you're thinking about working remotely going forward for your company.
Yeah, I mean, I will tell you, Aaron, that I and everybody on my team is probably, if they're watching this, probably laughing right now, because I have been such a traditionalist around the work from home thing. I just didn't really like it, or it wasn't something that I was comfortable with. There's definitely old school train of thought that I've had on that. But what this has revealed to me is that, even for myself, I feel like I'm so much more productive. I'm getting so much more done in this environment. And so, while I think there's a good mixture between the work at home and being in the office, that we have to try to strike that balance over time once we get out of the middle of this crisis. I think we need to strike that balance. But when we go back to it, I think we're going to know how to work more efficiently and do things, more efficiently. I think that a lot of the busy work and time spent on things that are not really important, that's been revelational, I think, to a lot of people. I know it definitely has been for me. And so I think we will be much more productive as professionals moving forward.
Yeah, makes sense. And speaking of going back to work, which I know we don't have a crystal ball here to know when that's going to make sense, but how are you and your leadership team? I know a lot of entrepreneurs that we work with at Endeavor are thinking a lot about that as things somewhat reopen up, barring future spikes of the coronavirus. How are you and your team talking about the right time to get back to work, and what are some of the things that you're thinking through to make that happen?
So, Aaron, I mean, for us, it's easy. People are, that's our most valuable and precious asset, and everybody on our team understands that. So, at the forefront of everything that we do is going to be the safety and health of our people, right? And so, so that said, we're following the guidelines from CDC and those public health officials around what's appropriate. We are going to, because we have the trust and confidence of our customers. Our folks have been doing a great job while working from home. So we're in a position we can leave them working from home. So, but there were a subset of our folks who were not eligible for some of the rules that were in play. I mean, that restricted them from being able to work from home. Those folks we're going to bring back, and we're actually going to do this starting the 1st of June. But we'll have plenty of space to socially distance, so there will be 3 locations with only less than 200 people, 120 people or so, that we will have between 3 sites that will be working. And we'll try to keep that and maintain that for as long as we can, until the situation changes.
Yeah, makes sense. Well, Mark, you've your story is inspirational. I think what you guys are doing at Chime and what your team's been able to do in the midst of a crisis is also inspirational to the people watching. I think as we wrap up, before we start fielding questions, it'd be great to maybe share some advice that you would have to, founders in the audience as they're trying to navigate their way through this unprecedented time.
Yeah, and I think for those that they're out of crisis, I think there's opportunity that's presented, and I think folks should stay encouraged and to try to not get overwhelmed by the circumstances that are out there. There's always a silver lining. I know that sounds cliche, but there definitely is. There is a different way, to make your way for success. But as far as those that are aspiring to start their own business, I would just have them to take advantage of the situation it is right now, because things are much slower dependent upon where you operate from. But I think overall things are much slower. So it gives you a chance to be very thoughtful about your approach to, whatever business that you're pursuing or that you're involved in right now. And I think over time, being that thoughtfulness is what does generate and put you in position to be successful. So I would just say honor it, embrace it. It's okay. This too shall pass.
Thank you, Mark. And yeah, as Endeavor's co-founder and CEO Linda Rottenberg likes to say, when economies turn down, entrepreneurs turn up. So some of the best businesses ever were built, in the midst of a crisis like we're in now. So
fortunately for us, the time that we've thrived the most has been in the middle of crisis, and so I definitely identify with that comment.
Yeah, well, I think it's a testament to your leadership too, Mark, and your teams. So
yeah,
awesome.
Thanks for saying that.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, I know we're coming up, I think, to question and answer time. So I believe the public chat is open. So if there are any questions, please filter those in, and hopefully I'll figure out how to use this technology and not screw this up, and we'll get some of the questions of the audience answered.
You'll read the questions back to me, Aaron?
Yeah, I think that's the plan. So
all right.
So while we're waiting, Mark, I think you've been in Atlanta. I know you're originally from Arkansas, but you're like me, a transplant that considers himself an Atlanta native now. What do you think what do you think Atlanta does well from a entrepreneurship perspective, and what are some of the opportunities you think we as a city in a metro area could really tackle?
Yeah, I'm fortunate. My son is an entrepreneur here in town. He's the founder for the Gathering Spot, and that's afforded me an opportunity to really see the ecosystem in Atlanta and how budding entrepreneurs, work. I would say, in a word for me, it's impressive. I mean, I never knew that there was this much energy and talent in, with folks, starting their own and having, viable, successful businesses, and, but they collaborate. It feels very warm and, collaborative is what I see, around Atlanta. I think everybody's for everybody, and rooting for everybody to be successful, for the most part. So, I mean, I think that's probably unique where it's not, I think there's some pride in the fact that, that you're an Atlanta-based business or Atlanta entrepreneur, or that you even just live here.
Yeah, I agree. Looks like we got a couple of questions that have come in. I think this is a good one. What are some of the recommendations you have for the listeners or viewers for building your leadership team? How did you build your leadership team? How do you think about building it going forward and finding, the right fit?
Yeah, I mean, it is definitely a trial and error situation. So I have a core group of folks that have been together for a long time now. But there have been other folks that have been on this team that are not on this team now, right? So not everybody is the right fit. And, the thing you can't be afraid of is going with your instincts and putting the person on the team. And if it doesn't work out, then realize and recognize that and just move on. And I want to say this about moving on. Moving on doesn't necessarily mean just moving the person out of the business. As a team, we started this practice back in the Ryla days of, it was a book club. We were reading books, and we read good to great. And I think the lesson that came out of that book for everybody on the team was the right seat on the bus. So it's a constant reshuffling and trying to get the most out of people, because generally when you bring somebody on, you think that they're talented. It's just a matter of positioning them in the right place, the right seat on the bus, to get the most of that talent, to help them, in fact, realize and reach their potential. And so I think if you do that and just, don't be afraid to change. It's a constant thing in our company. And that changes a lot around people and where they're positioned in the work that they actually do for the company.
Yeah, that's great. Makes sense. One more question that just came in. Maybe talk a bit more about your high growth strategy for Chime. How did you guys started the company just a few years ago and have scaled it very quickly to, thousands of employees and millions of dollars in revenue. How do you do that, and how do you even think about taking it bigger?
Well, I guess it starts right there with just thinking about that it could be bigger. And, and because we do have a mission kind of outlook on what we do, in that the importance of creating a job is important in the communities that we establish. So like we've on purpose gone into underserved communities and establish our presence because we bring a lot of jobs. We understand and know that that's going to have a ripple effect in communities around the country. And so once we had success in one place, it was just natural to think, okay, how much bigger can this be? And, we started out with a goal of 10,000 because we know that there's enough market share out there for us to execute on that. So right now we're trying to create 10,000 jobs in underserved communities around the country. So we started here in Atlanta. We've expanded over to Dallas and to Charlotte. We have Baltimore on our roadmap, Detroit, Memphis. We got a number of other cities around the country that are on our roadmap that we think that we can go in and make a difference. And so it's just a matter of believing it and knowing that, it's something worthy to do, I think is at the forefront of getting anything done as far as scaling.
Yeah, that's great. And I think, the thinking big mindset is so key to continue to grow and scale. And Mark, I'm going to have to remind you, you signed up for 100,000 jobs.
I have to tell a quick story for the listeners here. So I'm an Endeavor entrepreneur. So Aaron is the founder of the Atlanta Endeavor, office. And so what they do is for companies that are high growth, have the potential for high growth, they identify certain entrepreneurs and take them through a process, and then they select certain ones to be a part of the network. Well, I went to Tokyo last summer with Aaron to go through that process where they did select me. And there, the folks were hearing our story, and everybody to a person was encouraging me to think beyond 10,000 and to the point where I had to sign up that we were going to have a goal of 100,000 jobs around the country, versus 10. So that's the inside joke that Aaron's sharing there.
Yeah, you can always think bigger, I guess, is the takeaway, right?
That's right.
That's awesome. Actually, somebody asked you, or one of the questions coming in is, what has it been like, I guess, going through the Endeavor process and being part of the Endeavor network?
Yeah. It's just been tremendous. And I'm not just saying this because I'm speaking to Aaron now, but they regularly check in with me as to how they can help me grow and expand our business. I mean, they're at the core of what they're trying to do is to promote high growth entrepreneurs and make sure that they execute on the potential that they have. And so they check in on me, and there's been several, areas that I've needed some help on. The earlier question about talent, Aaron has referred several people to me. We've had some issues or challenges in other areas of our business. I can always go to them, and they can give me referrals to people that can help me think through, what those are. So just a tremendous support system there. Nothing but great things to say about the Endeavor organization and how supportive that they've been to me personally and to our company.
Thank you, Mark, for the kind words. It's a two-way street, so you've put a lot into it, and it's been a pleasure working with you.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think we're close to up on time. So, Mark, thank you so much for sharing your story and being an inspiration to our entrepreneurs out there. Look forward to continuing to work with you and your company, and excited to watch you guys.
Yeah, likewise, Aaron, and I'm excited and glad that we got a chance to chat today. Hopefully, there was something that was shared that would be helpful to those that were, tuned in. I would just like to leave, everyone with, the thought that you just should stay encouraged. Things they always turn around, and you just have to stay at it. Don't give up. It'll work out.
Thank you, Mark.
Yeah.
Fantastic. All right, I'm going to pass it back to Amy Love from Invest Atlanta. She's the head of technology, innovation, and entrepreneurship, who helped put all this together. Amy, thank you for the opportunity. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you, guys. That was really inspiring today. Thank you so much, Mark. Thank you so much, Aaron. Yes, never give up. I appreciate that message, and I also liked the message about always finding opportunity in chaos. So great lessons, and appreciated learning a little bit more about Endeavor Atlanta. And thank you very much to our Invest Atlanta board member, Michelle Olympiadis, for kicking us off today and showing her support for startups and entrepreneurship and technology innovation in our city. So this is the, I believe, 8th one of these. We have another one planned for May 28th. So join us May 28th at 10:30. We're going to hear from some surprise guests about diverse founders and some new opportunities in the city to look forward to. And again, this is only happens because you're part of it, and we thank you for streaming in with us. We have recorded it. We will share the link to this recording and hope that you will pass it along to people you think could benefit from this, and invite them to join us next week. It's a partnership effort, and I'd like to thank our awesome group of partners. This is how I end every session. So if you join us on the regular, you can join in with me. Repeat after me. Thank you to Endeavor Atlanta, Technology Association of Georgia, Advanced Technology Development Center, ATV, Engage VC, Tech Square Ventures, Venture Atlanta, WeWork Labs, Silicon Valley Bank, Independent Bankers Association of America, the Atlanta CEO Council, Georgia Alive, Lab 1886, Women's Entrepreneurship Initiative. Hey, congratulations to that new cohort, by the way. Overline VC, and MailChimp. And we will see you all next week. Stay well.